What's going on? My name is Joe Lewis, and I practice talking on the internet. It's been a minute since I've done one of these videos. Um, I've made a bunch of them, but I just haven't released them. But I want to release this one because there's been something on my mind, and if I do the due diligence on this thumbnail, then you might think I'm just going to be another person with a podcast talking about women. But it's not going to be that. So I'm going to kind of make the point a little bit clear to the best of my ability, and then we're going to roll with it from there. Basically, the thesis of this, I guess, rather the problem, a lot of people build relationships off of very material things. And if you build a relationship off a material thing, then it's not going to be sustainable, in my opinion. So what we want to try to do is build relationships off of something greater than the material. And the best way I've been able to sort of articulate this idea is that you want to build relationships where you and the person you're in the relationship in with contain each other's aims and goals within each other's actions. So basically you move in a way where the person you're in a relationship with feels seen in all areas of activity. So if you're going to the grocery store, they can feel seen. If you're watching the kids at home, they can feel seen. If you're going out on some golf trip in the middle of Dubai, they can feel seen. And I think one of the problems in a lot of relationships is that people don't build them with that level of sustainability, a sustainability that says, wherever my partner is and however my partner moves, I feel seen in what they do because their actions contain my aims. Their actions contain my goals. Their actions contain my desires. And I don't think a lot of people build relationships like that. I think people, to no fault of their own, build relationships on things that can waver over time, like love, like child rearing. And love is a complicated one because I said this take on Twitter and people really didn't understand what I mean. So I'll start there first. Building a relationship on love alone is not sustainable. Building a relationship on love alone is not sustainable. Love is something that you cannot control. You cannot control how much your partner loves you. Your partner is going to come in and out of love with you. The people in your family are going to come in and out of love with you. So what you can do, what you can try to do, is build your relationship on something greater than love, which is moving in a particular manner where the people around you can see themselves in your actions. So something as mundane as taking out the dog for a walk, and something a little bit more complicated, like going on, like I mentioned, an extended vacation for a long period of time. Those are a much harder thing to, a much harder thing to do. And it's also something that's a little bit trickier in terms of sustenance and sustainability. Because then the question is, well, how do I do that? How do I build relationships where I move in a way that my partner can see themselves in my actions? I don't have the silver bullet answer. I don't think most people do. I think what we have instead is a general idea of what we can do, and it's just going to require, at least in my opinion, a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of communication. I think that's one of the biggest things where, like, if we were to say like a thing that's tangible, building a relationship on communication is a much more sustainable thing. Because that communication can relate right back to the idea of moving in a way where your actions contain your partner's aims. And for a lot of men especially, we don't do that. We demand women to do that. We demand women to move in a way where their actions contain our wants and aims and desires. But then when it comes to the burden of, hey, men, you got to do this too. You got to move in a way where your partner also sees themselves in your actions. Then things get like, oh, whoa, I can't do that. I can't do that. I must be able to do that for me, but for them, but for me, I can't do that. I just think men need to have a much more stronger understanding of like, just that we don't move in a way that contains our partner's aims. So how can we be more integrated in a relationship and in family life and in social life where our actions contain the aims of our partners. And there's like, hopefully, if I remember when I publish this, I'll put some books that might be kind of helpful. But you know, it is what it is. But I think that again, what we can do is just move in a way that contains our partner's aims in all areas of activity, which is why I don't think it's possible for you to have ideological differences with your partner. Like, I think if your partner is a conservative and you are whatever you believe to be on the left, that's an incompatible relationship from the jump, because you're not going to move in a way that contains each other's aims, because somebody within that, due to ideological reasons, is going to have some level of disproportionality in the relationship. I hold the same thing for religion, where you can't have two partners of two oppositional religions or oppositional faiths. So if you're Catholic and your wife is agnostic, that's going to be a friction that is going to affect the way you both move. And the reason why I bring this up in part is because I think that we see the problem in the mo'u world. Oh God, here comes my bu'a'i. We see a problem in what we know as modern society, whatever you believe that to be, where we don't move in a way where our actions contain our partner's aims, and that creates internal agitations. And internal agitations are going to influence your external world. So whatever you're dealing with in private is going to affect you in public. And I think that your internal life, your private life, and your external life, your public life, have to have some level of consistency. But the consistency, I think, can only go from internal to external, not external to internal. Because again, like, if we move in a way where our actions contain our partner's aims, that is much more sustainable for an external world that doesn't want us to exist. So we can, like, if there is a mutual understanding where my partner is going to move in a way where their actions contain my aims and wants and desires, and one of my desires is to make sure I survive, then that's going to be much stronger in a changing market, however you want to describe it, in the outside world. Because then you can, like, your bond is greater than things like love, money, and other material things. Your bond is greater than, I don't want to say the bond itself, because that sounds like some, like, smoking some weed ayahuasca up your butt. But I think that, again, we shouldn't build our relationships on material things. And I believe that love, for example, is one of the material things that a lot of people build their relationships off of. Appearance, money. When in reality, like, you owe it to the people in your life to use your creativity and your knowledge and experience to help co-determine each other's lives. Now, it's going to be much more deeper when it comes to marriage, because marriage is a vow. So that's like a promise to do these things. But I think we can use our personal relationships as practice for that eventual goal of something like marriage. So you move in a way where the people around you can see themselves in your actions. And while those temporary people that be your friends and what have you are going to come in and out of your life in different ways, like, the eventual goal is to be able to do this forever until one of you dies with a partner in marriage. Because I think that, like, for marriage, it's one of the few levels of freedom that's, like, really, really important. And I think that while conservatives kind of get marriage right in that it's important, and that's where their correctness starts and ends, that yeah, they recognize that marriage is important, families are important, but then that's like the only thing that's like, okay, everything else is just garbage. But at least they have some level of importance to marriage and importance of relationships. That's why, like, the red pill is kind of like a really tragic story, where, like, the red pill could have been like a pretty decent critique on patriarchy, critique on nuclear family structures, critiques on material desires, and how building a relationship on material desires is going to be unsustainable. A lot of good things that the red pill could have done, but then they just said like you Martin were Bugatti of the child trafficking. I don't know if that meant child trafficked, but that's what I didn't pay attention to that part. But my point is that like the red pill and the manosphere type folks, they get a few things correct when it comes to like the importance of marriage and the importance of sustainable relationships, and everything else is just garbage. So I want to start doing a little bit more actively, just like some clarifications of certain things. And one of the prevailing things that I've noticed is that they'll yield that relationships are very, very important, and they'll yield that marriage is a very important type of freedom that everybody should be able to experience, and that is the freedom from fear that your actions are going to lead to you being lonely for the rest of your lives. But instead of like explaining, okay, how can we begin to cultivate that in our personal action, it just delves to like gender essentialism and all types of other nonsense. But again, to kind of close this out, because I want to make this kind of short, move in a way where your actions contain the aims and desires of the people around you, and you cultivate relationships where people move in a way where they contain your aims. And when you move in that sort of way, then the material agitations and the external agitations of life won't matter, because your relationships are built on a stronger foundation than material things like money and love, child rearing, etc. And eventually, like, if you want to get married, that's fine. If you don't want to get married, that's fine. But you still have a culture of behavior where your default action is to be moving in ways where you are inclusive to the people around you, that you're moving in a way where you contain their wants, you contain their desires, you contain their aims, their ends, whatever word you want to use for it. And since you're so used to doing that, your ability to share and integrate in different settings is going to be much, much stronger. And in a world where like we're finding that like emotional connection and personal connection is something very, very important, I think you'll be much more equipped in a society that wants to fucking kill you. And it may not kill you in like stabby way. It might kill you when you just have a heart attack because of the stress of your job and your marriage and whatever types of things. But yeah, so anyway, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing a little bit of a shift of how this content looks. It's not gonna look too much different, but things like sort of like thumbnails and stuff like that might be a little bit different. But either way, I hope you're having a great week. And I will see you on the next one. Take care.